It's country music time. Presenting Hoedown, the best in country music.
In early 1965, television was introduced to the northwest of New South Wales, and radio station 2TM experimented with a number of music radio programs for its nighttime format, seeing things had changed quite dramatically in that area for radio because of television. The most successful of these programs was country music, which was drawing listeners from an area well beyond the coverage area of 2TM itself. So it was decided that a regular nightly program would be established. It would be hosted by John Minson and would be called Hoedown. Hoedown made a huge impact on the country music scene. In 1965, things were relatively quiet. Sure, there are a number of established artists who were recording, but there wasn't much room for newcomers to get into country music. Over the next few years, this evolved to the point that 2TM decided that they would stage an annual Country Music Record Awards. Let's go through it. How did the nucleus of the Golden Guitar Awards all come together in 1972 after Johnny Ashcroft gave you the idea?
You would actually remember the Radio Industry Awards, and you were associated with that. And it was at that time that we first saw a Radio Industry Award, and Max Ellis picked up on it, and he said, well, we'll have to get something relevant to country music. We want it to be something pretty substantial, and also something which is fairly easy to understand. One of Max's criticisms of awards generally at that time was that it was very hard to associate the actual award with the thing that it was being given for. Even, some of the American awards, they were strange-looking sculptures, and he thought that whatever we did should be relevant to country music, and he suggested the guitar, and I put my two pence in by modifying the idea of the guitar to a cutaway guitar. I was thinking of Barry Thornton, whom you remember used to play that big cutaway Gibson guitar, an electric acoustic guitar, and I thought that should be included in the design somehow, so we made it, at my suggestion, it was made a semi-cutaway guitar, and it had pickups on it. And then when we came to the idea of something to make it out of, obviously it was going to be too hard to make it out of plastic or anything like that, so we decided to cast it. And I forget whose idea it was. Actually, I knew a foundry in Sydney that cast bronze. They used to make ship propellers, and I knew that they could cast a bronze figure, so that's how it turned out to be a gold guitar. But the base was something else again. We had to decide what to mount it on, so we figured on Tasmanian blackwood.
Well, it certainly stood up well because now the design is still the same. It's founded a little differently, but the mounting on the Tasmanian blackwood continues. What about the awards themselves, John? They started off pretty quietly. You picked 5 categories for the first year, and it grew from that.
It was basically based on the American awards, the Country Music Association Awards in America.
Was it easy to get the industry on side? Did it take some time to get people to take the awards seriously and enter their product?
We did realise that was going to be the crux of the whole promotion. Without the industry on side, the whole thing would not have happened. And you had to realise that at that time there was no award for recordings of country music. So the awards was going to be an industry award. It was going to be representing the country music recording industry. Labels like CBS and RCA and WG Records, these were major companies, and it was a big ask for them to allow us to present on their behalf an official awards for country music recordings. And I already had a pretty strong liaison with the record industry, so I was delegated to go and talk to them. And I remember that we realised at the time that EMI was the critical one. If EMI came on board, the others would follow. And I had a pretty good relationship at that time with the late Eric Dunn. You remember Eric Dunn?
Absolutely. Great
Lovely
record
fella.
Producer, yeah.
So I fronted Eric Dunn, and naturally, we were good friends, so I was able to talk to him as a friend. But when I mentioned the fact that we wanted to do this awards, on behalf of the recording industry. I remember his expression became a lot like Clint Eastwood. He just looked at me with this cold, hard look, and he said, "You think you can do it?" And I said, "I know we can do it." And then he said, "Well, of course you'll do it in Sydney." And my heart dropped. I said, "Well, actually, we want to do it in Tamworth." And he shook his head and he said, "You'll have to leave that with me." So there followed a couple of weeks of great trepidation as we waited to see whether EMI would accept it. Finally, we rang and asked, and he said, "Yes, they've decided we'll give it one try." Well, of course, straight away we were off and running to CBS and RCA and everybody else. And the first question they asked was, "Is EMI in it?" And once we said yes, they said, "All right, well, we'll go along with it." And the other interesting thing was, I think once again it was Max's idea that we'd make it a formal occasion. Do you remember the first award?
I certainly do.
Black tie.
Exactly.
And of course the Tamworth Town Hall, not air-conditioned, the middle of a stinking hot summer, and all of these record executives in their formal gear and their ladies in long gowns, and everybody died. And that was the beginning and the end of the formal side of it. But we did learn, but at the end of that awards, I remember Eric Dunn came up and he said, "Well, you've done it this time, let's see if you can do it again next year," which were jubilant when he said that, because it meant that they had gone along with it. And he also said something interesting, which I remembered. He said, "I didn't think there was expertise like this outside of Sydney." So that got it off the ground.
When nominations closed December 2 last in the Australasian Country Music Awards, a total of 94 entries have been received from 16 record companies in Australia and New Zealand. All these entries were contending for 5 separate categories of judged awards, with one award designed for radio listening judging.
These are the Australasian Country Music Awards from onstage Tamworth Town Hall.
When you think back over the years, it came as a kind of progression that it gave impetus to a lot of the younger artists who maybe would have not moved into the industry if it hadn't been for the awards. And also it enhanced the career of the established artists, because a lot of them had never been given the recognition that they truly deserved, like the pioneers, Buddy and Tex and Slim and Smokey and Rick and Phil Carey. And it gave them the status that they had been denied for so long.
The significance of Hoedown and the establishment of the Golden Guitar Awards in 1973 is quite profound. In 1965, pop music was enjoying a boom time. The British were at their peak, and Australian pop was going very well, with people like Normie Rowe, Ray Brown and the Bee Gees scoring big hits alongside the Beatles, Tom Jones, Gene Pitney and the Seekers. But things were relatively quiet for country music. The people who were making successful records in Australia were mainly established artists like Slim Dusty, Tex Morton, Buddy Williams, Kevin Sheegog, the Hawking Brothers, Reg Lindsay, Rickenthal Carey and Chad Morgan. When the Golden Guitar Awards came along in 1973, we certainly saw an increase in the number of new names appearing on records. But we also saw a number of dormant veteran acts rejuvenate their careers. Smokey Dawson, Shirley Toms, Dusty Rankin and Shorty Ranger were some of those who came back to recording as a direct result of what was happening in Tamworth. There was an event that may have triggered the resurgence. In 1970, the bicentennial year of Captain Cook's first visit, Radio 2TM staged a special concert when they brought together a number of then veteran country artists. That was a huge success. John Minson, the original host of Hoedown, believes the Golden Guitar Awards and subsequently the establishment of the Country Music Roll of Renown was a milestone for our early country artists.
Because a lot of them had never been given the recognition that they truly deserved, like the pioneers, Buddy and Tex and Slim and Smokey and Rick and Phil Carey.
Smokey Dawson has just gone his 92nd birthday. And there's absolutely no doubt in a lot of our minds that in the mid-70s, when Smokey had basically retired and he wasn't really active in the music business, the fact Tamworth came along and people still remembered him and people wanted to see him sing and wanted to see him, gave him a new lease of life, And Smokey has been so active for the latter part of his life that you think back at the time when Tamworth started, when he basically had retired. And I guess the same thing can be said for so many of them, John.
Yes, well, as you were talking there, Nick, my mind went back to that bicentennial concert in 1970 when people like Smokey and Shirley Toms and Smiling Billy Blinkhorn and all the others were brought together. And it was the first time that those people had been on stage all together. One of the things that Smokey was so overjoyed about was that the older fans were there, but also a lot of younger people were there. And pretty well everybody was asking him, was he still making records? And it spurred him on to get back performing again and also recording again.
And he then did a song about Tamworth too.
Everybody knows why everybody goes to Tamworth. Everybody loves to hear a good old country song. And somebody goes 'cause she needs country loving. Hey, Mr. Hoedown, put another record on, but make it country music.
You know what? It's an interesting fact that there were so many songs written about Tamworth that it had more songs written about it than any other town in Australia, including Sydney. I thought that was good, you know, because there were so many songs about American towns, and there were hardly any about Australian towns. We've sort of broke that barrier, and now, of course, people feel free to write about anything, you know, the Cunnamulla fella and all these others.
During John Minson's time as the host of Hoedown between 1965 and 1987, a number of iconic country music treasures were created, including the Hands of Fame, where country music artists each January place their hands in concrete so that people can come at any time and see them. And also the establishment of the Roll of Renown, country music's highest honour, where those who have made a long and lasting contribution to country music are perpetually honoured on huge granite rocks in Tamworth. The Roll of Renown only honours performers, and John Minson is the only broadcaster who appears on the Roll of Renown. He also was a fine harmonica player who played on countless numbers of recording sessions over the years, but the inscription on his plaque on the Roll of Renown recognised John for what he was, the doyen of Australian country music broadcasters. His plaque reads, "Born Sydney, June 5th, 1927. John is unique in Australian country music, revered alike by fans, artists and the industry as a vital link for nearly 3 decades. For 23 years, compere of 2TM Hoedown, Australia's most successful country music program, he was instrumental in the development of the Country Music Awards and Tamworth as Australia's country music capital. A founding member of the Capital Country Music Association, a renowned craftsman of pedal steel guitars and gifted harmonica player. The doyen of Australian country music broadcasters, he will always be appreciatively known as Mr. Hoedown. John Minson was elevated to the Country Music Roll of Renown in 1988. Was that the ultimate moment in your career when you were named to the roll when you retired?
Oh, you know me, Nick. I'm not one for awards.
That's why I asked the question.
Well, it is nice. Fortunately, it was one of the rare photographs of me that was reasonable. I hate my own photographs.
Yeah, it was also one of the rare opportunities when you didn't know what was going on.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was always one of the shakers and movers behind it all up until that time, and it was a bit strange being on the receiving end.
I can just see Tamworth down in the morning light. Hear John signing off now. We made it through another night. Anytime I'm traveling down a road that's dark and long, there'll be a station somewhere with a DJ name of John.
Hi there, welcome to the night show. Got a ton of records here to spin. If you're out there traveling on that road, oh, be careful there, my friend. Got news alive at 55. The weatherman says a snowstorm's coming on. Till 6 a.m., just be my guest. I'm DJ Hoedown John.